when you talk, say, about domestic violence, and there's a sort of thesis behind it, and I'm putting it in a bit of a nutshell here, so feel free to rephrase it, that men are, in the end, if men are pushed too far by too aggressive a feminism, there will be a backlash, and that there's a sort of undercurrent of violence, be it verbal.
Oh, that's a warning, that's a warning,
but it's
not
a
a commentary
warning
on the
that
utility
kind
of
of
that.
suggests that there may be sort of fault in those who push progressivism too far. They will get a backlash. Some people, of course, see that as a bit of a permissive environment for bad behaviour.
Well, people tend to confuse describing the likelihood of something with supporting the fact that it exists. And I'm describing the likelihood of something, not supporting the fact that it exists. If you push too far on the left, you're going to get a backlash on the right. That's how things work. And this is just a derivation of that as far as I'm concerned.
How does that work in the context of domestic violence?
Oh, I don't think it's applicable in the context of domestic violence at all. I think those things are completely separate issues.
I mean, you were mentioning to me just as we were chatting.
And I was speaking only politically with regards to the backlash. That was a comment on political backlash. It had nothing to do with domestic violence. That's a whole different issue.
But violence often, you've said, in relation to...
No, that's why men...
That's why men have difficulty with women. Is it really
No,
so?
that's why men have difficulty with women who are completely out of control. But women have
should control women?
Women who are completely...
Women. Is it really
No,
so?
that's why men have difficulty with women who are completely out of control. But women have
Who should
difficulty...
control women?
Well, other women themselves, men, society, just like everyone is controlled. I mean, you're controlled by society, I'm controlled by society, and thank God for that. I mean,
funny. I mean, you described yourself as a liberal earlier, and I think a liberal doesn't think that a society controls women or men.
Well, let's say regulates. I'm a psychologist as well.
But what is it out to control a woman? What is this creature? How do we know when we met one?
Well, I'm sure that you've met women in your life that acted towards you in a bullying and detestable manner. It's very difficult for women to cope with that because they don't have any real recourse. And female bullying can be unbelievably vicious, and usually that takes the shape of reputation destruction, innuendo, and gossip. It's well documented. It's very difficult to defend. No, men do it too, but men... No, but the patterns...
Disproportionately women, in your view, or not? Sorry.
Yes, disproportionately women. That's what the data indicate. I mean, if men
Where is the data on innuendo and gossip?
Well, it's among antisocial behavior among adolescents. It's a well-documented field. So, because people look at aggressive and antisocial behavior in women and in men, And in women, it tends to take the expression of innuendo, gossip, and reputation destruction. And in men, it tends to take the form of outright physical aggression. There's a whole literature on that. It's not a surprise to anyone. This has been known for 30 years. I mean, the rates of antisocial...
I think the idea of the female gossip probably predates 30 years.
Well, it does.
By a long time, but that doesn't... It doesn't make it gospel,
but
really,
people
does it?
have... No, it doesn't. But people have looked at how women express... Look, women have to express aggression somehow, unless you're willing to say that they're not aggressive. They tend not to do it physically. Not to the degree men do, so they use other channels. And what other channels are there other than physical aggression if you're going to be aggressive? Well, you go after people verbally. You go after them with innuendo and gossip and reputation destruction. And that's how it works.
And just to be clear, that you think that's predominantly a female modus operandi?
It isn't that I think that.
Well, I'm
it's that
asking
the
you.
clinical literature indicates that. It isn't that I think it.
Well, I'm not interviewing the clinical literature. I'm interviewing you. What do you think?
Well, I'm a psychologist and a scientist, and I tend to base my opinions on what I've read in the broad, relevant clinical literature. I'm not making this stuff up. I studied antisocial behavior for like 15 years. I'm actually quite an expert on it. And so we know that men are more likely to look at it this way. All right. Women are much more likely to try to commit suicide. And men are much more likely to kill themselves. And the reason for that is that men use lethal force and women don't. Now that's a big difference. Okay, so then you say, well, women manifest aggression towards themselves and to others, but they don't use lethal force. They don't use physical force the same way men do. So they have to do it some other way.
Why do
well,
they
what
have
are the other
to
ways?
do something some other way?
Because
you can take
people are
your Hobbesian
aggressive.
war against, so you're basically a Hobbesian. Life is
No,
war
I'm
of
half
all
and
against
half.
all.
Half and half. Half Hobbes, half Rousseau. That's why I'm not an ideologue. Because I don't think that people are good or evil. I think they're both. I don't think that culture is security or tyranny. I think it's both. And I don't think that nature is benevolence or catastrophe. I think it's both. And that's why I'm not an ideologue. And I mean...
And where do you stand on the Me Too campaign?
Okay. I was going to make a comment in some sense about some part of what I'm presenting at the moment right now, but now that I'm here, I just can't seem to come up with any of the words that belong in this talk meditation today. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just a guy called Fool the Great. Not to know what you're doing is somehow the place to strive toward the place that you don't know what you're doing. Why is this? Why is this a quest for wonder, not mastery?
My consciousness is not contained in my head. My consciousness is broadcast out in the field.
Right.
And consciousness is what shapes our experiences. So consciousness that goes inside is shaping my genetics, my health, and my interior issue. But the consciousness I broadcast on the outside is influencing everybody else that has consciousness. And I say each of us is a tuning fork. And I say, well, if the mass of us, our tuning forks are saying victim, fear, then the big energy field that is shaping human civilization is now responding to fear, shutting down the mechanism, and all that stuff. And I say, if we want to change civilization, old saying from the old days was, before you go out and change the world, take care of your own backyard. And this applies right here. It says, you want to change civilization, first you have to change your consciousness. You have to recognize you're a powerful person. You're a creator. This is quantum physics, most valid science. I go, why? Because if we start broadcasting consciousness of positive, affirmative actions, things that we can do, I'm a tuning fork, you're a tuning fork. There's another tuning fork. What's the point? Every tuning fork offers a certain amount of energy field. But when you get large numbers of people with the same thoughts, that field is so palpable that it physically changes the world in which we live. You're the master. Your consciousness will look at your genes and adjust it to fit your vision of the world. And if you have a negative vision of the world, then negative chemistry comes forth. But if you're in love, for example, the wonderful chemistry of love that you find in the blood as well, dopamine for pleasure, oxytocin to bond you with that source, vasopressin, a hormone that makes you more attracted to keep your partner, and growth hormone. I go, wow, if you make a cocktail out of those elements called culture medium, the cells thrive like crazy. But then I say, well, what if you have a thought of fear? I go, the love chemistry doesn't come out of the brain. Fear chemistry, stress hormones, factors that regulate the immune system, that shut it down, come out in fear. I go, oh. I say, what's the relevance? I say, the blood in a state of fear has chemistry that doesn't support vitality. In fact, it shuts down the system. And I go, because in protection, you wall yourself up, so you shut it down. I go, so love gives you growth. Fear shuts off your growth. And all of a sudden I say, yeah, but the vision of love and fear is what determines the chemistry, which in turn determines genetic activity. Conclusion: your thoughts are manifesting not just your interior life expression, but also your behavior that influences your life in the outside world.
Nothing. Yes. Lady is standing by the pillar. So the question is there then no need for man to seek for a meaning in his life? Not only his life, but the life of the universe. Right. No, there is no need to seek for a meaning. Meaning, I use the word in rather a definite way. And for me, meaning is a function of signs, particularly of words and symbols. Meaning is the referent of words, as when we take the word water, the meaning of it is something drinkable, whereas the sound water is not drinkable. So therefore, if we ask life to have a meaning, we look for something other than life to be that meaning. And therefore we reduce life to a being mere words and mere symbol. Now, of course, you may use the word meaning in a less precise way and say now, although the music of Bach has no meaning in the sense that it is not like the music of Tchaikovsky, designed to imitate natural events and noises, nevertheless it has meaning in the sense that it enchants us. The patterns of it ravish us in the same way as abstract patterns in an arabesque. That's a little different sense of the word meaning. And yes, I would say that life has that kind of meaning, but you don't seek it, because if you seek it, you lose it. I see the process of life as an essentially musical process which has no meaning except itself. It is going round in circles like we love to spin in circles when we're dancing. Like children love to spin around in circles till they get dizzy. That's fun. And so the articulation of wonderful patterns is the meaning of life. If you seek for meaning, Now this applies to all seekers. I'm sorry, growth seekers. But the seeking's all right. I mean, it's a free country. But it invariably takes you away from what you're looking for. Because every search supposes I will find it later, not now. In the next moment, that somehow by some gimmick, by some exercise, by some process of transformation, I will later discover what I want. This is postponement. Yes. Yes. Well, this is a matter of words, my friend, because you may think that dancing is superficial, whereas I think it's profound. And so on. And I suggested two meanings of the word meaning, one of which is merely reduces life to being symbolic of something else, something always beyond. Then I'm going to ask, what's the meaning of that? And then we get into that infinite regression of questions. I feel that instead of getting into these infinite regressions of what is beneath, what is behind, look, it's right out in front of you now. And when you catch on to that, now gets very profound. I mean, it's the moment when nothing becomes something. And I don't see how much profounder than that you can get.
Well, if that's the case, why did you propose?
What do I propose? Nothing.
I don't think that we did it just quite that way. Then you will say nothing is something, and then we'll go around it again. But if you really believe that, then there would be no echelon society. After all, we all are either whether it's doing something or thinking something. We definitely are not just feeling that we're going to sit and let everything happen to us. Why did I come here? Or why did anyone come here today?
Yeah, but I mean, look here. When you ask always, why did you come? I repeat, that is a barren question. Why did you do it? Why did this happen? It goes a question that peters out. So this is not important. What is important, surely, is this immediate now. Not why are we here, but what are we here? Unless you live in the eternal now, consciously, you have no use for plans. Because people who live in the future, or for the future, when their plans come off, they're not there enjoying them. They're planning for another future. They never catch up with themselves.
Can you not put
Yes, there's a hand here.
Possible that in the word seek that we are attractional in a Western word, that it seems as though you're projecting it as going down the road, as though we were going out looking for something.
Well, the comment is about seeking. Is it necessarily a road, like taking a road? Or is seeking also conceivable as readiness to receive? Well, of course, the road isn't a merely Western analog. It's a very common metaphor. The path and the stages of the path, the steps of the path, are used in both East and West. But the Chinese word for the way is Tao, T-A-O. And the path is what we're looking for. In the Chinese sense, you see. The Tao is the works, baby. That is the which than which there is no whicher. And the to be in harmony with the way, to be on the way, you see. But the Tao isn't going anywhere. And that's like when the Chinese poet is wandering in the forest. And he looks at the clouds and he says, where are they going? No one knows. Where does this path lead? No one cares. I'm wandering on and on in a great forest without thought of return. That is poetic feeling to the Far East, both to the Japanese and the Chinese. They call that spirit yugen. And it's the mysterious going nowhereness of things, the wandering spirit. So that sort of seeking is different from anxiety to get something in the future which you don't have now.
Not anywhere is where I want to go.
We're having a conversation. I'm deciding I'm going to listen to you, right? That's different than how people generally communicate, because usually when they communicate, they're doing something like, okay, we're going to have a conversation and I'm going to tell you why I'm right and I'll win if you agree. Or maybe you're having a conversation where I don't know what you're trying to do. Maybe you're trying to impress the person you're talking to. So you're not listening to them at all. You're just thinking about what you're going to say next. Okay, so that's not this. This is, you might have something to tell me. And so I'm going to listen on the off chance that you'll tell me something that would really be useful for me to know. And so you could think about it as an extension of the Piagetian. You know, Piaget talked about the fundamentally important element of knowledge being to describe how knowledge is sought, the process by which knowledge is generated. Well, if you agree with me and I find that out, I know nothing more than I knew before. I just know what I knew before. And maybe I'm happy about that because, you know, it didn't get challenged. But I'm no smarter than I was before. But maybe you're different than me, and so while I'm listening to you, you'll tell me something I don't like. Maybe it's something I find contemptible or difficult, whatever. Maybe you'll tell me something I don't know, and then I won't be quite as stupid. And then maybe I won't run painfully into quite as many things. And that's a really useful thing to know, especially if you live with someone and you're trying to make long-term peace with them, is they're not the same as you. And their way they look at the world and the facts that they pull out of the world aren't the same as your facts. And even though you're going to be overwhelmed with the proclivity to demonstrate that you're right, it is the case that two brains are better than one. And so maybe 9 of the 10 things they tell you are dispensable, or maybe even 49 out of 50, but one thing, All you need to get out of the damn conversation is one thing you don't know. And one of the things that's very cool about a good psychotherapeutic session is that the whole conversation is like that. All you're doing is trying to express the truth of the situation as clearly as possible. That's it. And so now Roger's proposition, and I'll tell you why he derived it, was that if you have a conversation like that with someone, it will make both of you better. It'll make both of you psychologically healthier. So there's an implicit presupposition that the exchange of truth is curative. Well, that's a very cool idea. I mean, it's a very deep idea. I think it's the most profound idea. It's the idea upon which Western civilization, although not only Western civilization, is actually predicated. The idea that truth produces health. But for Rogers, that was the entire purpose of the Psychotherapeutic Alliance. You come to see me because you want to be better. You don't even know what that means necessarily, neither do I. We're going to figure that out together. But you come and you say, look, things are not acceptable to me, and maybe there's something I could do about that. So that's the minimal precondition to engage in therapy. Something's wrong, you're willing to talk about it truthfully, and you want it to be better. Without that, the therapeutic relationship does not get off the ground. And so then you might ask, well, what relationships are therapeutic? And the answer to that would be, if you have a real relationship, it's therapeutic. If it isn't, what you have is not a relationship. God only knows what you have. You're a slave, they're a tyrant, you're both butting heads with one another. It's a primate dominance hierarchy dispute. Oh, I don't know, you're like two cats in a barrel, or two people with their hands around each other's throats. But what you have is not a relationship. So, all right. We may say that the greater the communicated congruence of experience, awareness, and behavior on the part of one individual, that's a reference to the same idea that I was describing with regards to Jung. So let's say you come and talk to me and you want things to go well. Well, I'm going to have to more or less be one thing, because if I'm all over the place, you can't trust any continuity in what I say. There's no reason for you to believe that I'm capable of actually telling you, I'm capable of expressing anything that's true. So the truth is something that emerges as a consequence of getting yourself lined up and beating all the, what would you call, all the impurities out of your soul, for lack of a better word. You have to be integrated for that to happen, and you do that at least in part by wanting to tell the truth. The more the ensuing relationship will involve a tendency towards reciprocal communication with the same qualities. So one of the things, I've been quite influenced by Rogers. One of the things I try to do in my therapeutic sessions is, first of all, to listen, to really listen. And then while I listen, I watch. And while I'm listening, things will happen in my head. Maybe I'll get a little image of something, or I'll get a thought or a question will emerge, and then I'll just tell the person what that is. But it's sort of directionless, It's not like I have a goal, except that we're trying to make things better. I'm on the side of the person. I'm on the side of the part of the person that wants things to be better, not worse. And so then those parts of us have a dialogue, and the consequence of that dialogue is that certain things take place, and then I'll just tell the person what happened. And it isn't that I'm right. That's not the point. The point is that they get to have an hour where someone actually tells them what they think. Here's the impact you're having on me. You know, this is making me angry. This is making me happy. This is really interesting. This reminds me of something that you said an hour ago that I don't quite understand. And the whole point is not for either person to make the proposition or convince the other that their position is correct, but merely to have an exchange of experience about how things are set up. And it's extraordinarily useful for people because it's often difficult for anyone to find anyone to talk to that will actually listen. And so another thing that's really strange about this listening is that if you listen to people, they will tell you the weirdest bloody things so fast you just cannot believe it. So if you're having a conversation with someone and it's dull, it's because you're stupid. That's why. You're not listening to them properly because they're weird. They're like wombats or albatrosses or rhinoceroses or something. Like they're strange creatures. And so if you were actually communicating with them and they were telling you how weird they really are, it would be anything but boring. So, and you can ask questions. That's a really good way of listening. But, you know, one of Roger's points is, well, you have to be oriented properly in order to listen. And the orientation has to be, look, what I want out of this conversation is that the place we both end up is better than the place we left. That's it. That's what I'm after. And if you're not after that, you got to think, why the hell wouldn't you be after that? What could you possibly be after that would be better than that? You walk away smarter and more well-equipped for the world than you were before you had the conversation, and so does the other person. Well, maybe if you're bitter and resentful and angry and anxious and, you know, generally annoyed at the world, then that isn't what you want. You want the other person to walk away worse, and you too, because you're full of revenge. But, you know, you'll get what you want if you do that. So, we know from our research that such empathic understanding, it's already defined that. I want to hear you. I want to hear what you have to say so we can clarify it and move forward. I want to have your best interests in mind, and mine as well, but, you know, both at the same time. Your families too, if we can manage that. We're after making things better. We know from our research that such empathic understanding with a person, not about him, is such an effective approach that it can bring about major changes in personality. Some of you may be feeling that you listen well to people and that you have never seen such results. The chances are very great that you have not been listening in the manner that I've described. Fortunately, I can suggest a little experiment that you can do to test the quality of your understanding. The next time you get into an argument with your wife or your friend or a small group of friends, stop the discussion for a moment and, for an experiment, institute this rule. Each person can speak up for himself only after he has first restated the ideas and feelings of the previous speaker accurately. What accurately means is they have to agree with your restatement. Now that's an annoying thing to do, because if someone is talking to you and you disagree with them, the first thing you want to do is take their argument, make the stupidest possible thing out of it that you can. That's the straw man, and then demolish it. It's like, so then you can walk away feeling good about it, and, you know, you primate dominated them really nicely. So, but that isn't what you do. You say, okay, well, I'm going to take what you told me, and maybe I'm even going to make your argument stronger than the one you made. That's useful if you're dealing with someone that you have to live with, because maybe they can't bloody well express themselves very well, but they have something to say So you make their argument strong. All right, then you see what this would mean. It would mean that before presenting your own point of view, it would be necessary for you to really achieve the other speaker's frame of reference, to understand his thoughts and feelings so well that you could summarize them for him. Sounds simple, doesn't it? But if you'll try it, you'll find that it's the most difficult thing that you've ever done. Okay, good. We'll leave it at that, and then we'll see you on Tuesday.
You saved me. Why?
Monkey.
Why?
Monkey. You have shown me, monkey. 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 Monkey.